Should I start as a setter or a closer? This is a very common question that new closers coming into this space, I'm getting the sense that quite a number of you are being taught to start as a setter. And the real reason is because people are telling you that if you have no experience and you want to get into closing, it's going to be very difficult because most companies only want experienced closers, which makes sense, but not entirely if you don't understand the difference between the specific roles and duties and focus and skill set between the two. So I hope this video can clear the difference between the two. So I'm going to start with being a setter first. So what that does, basically you are doing the work of reaching out to new leads, prospecting, usually either in a messenger type of thing, either Facebook Messenger, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever you can have conversations that you type. You'll go into those convos, okay, short for conversations. You'll speak with people and you will prospect them, and the end goal is to get them on a call, a sales call. Okay, that's what a setter does. There's also different variants like text messaging or via emails or cold calling, but doesn't matter what the mode of setting is, the end goal is to get calls booked. And sometimes it's a direct process when the leads come in strong, hot and fast. It's a direct process. Sometimes there's a little bit of nurturing going on. So one of your skill sets that you need to build, other than to book calls, okay, it's also to nurture leads. Send out resources, welcome them into the community, into the Facebook group, make sure they are getting whatever resources they need, growing your audience. So these skill sets are very unique and they are very specific, and they are nowhere close to what a remote closer does on the phone, on Zoom, on Skype, when you are more applying the psychology of high ticket sales with your prospect, to support your prospect on one call, sometimes two calls. So this specific skill set, it doesn't directly prepare you for the role of a closer if your end goal is to be a closer. It doesn't prepare you directly. However, indirectly, it does build your confidence. It does build your discipline. It does build your skills, which brings you that newfound sense of certainty that, hey, I can get the hang of this, right? And I can do something. I understand what it's like to live as a remote sales specialist, as a setter first, before you ease your way in and transition into a closer. So if you come from this angle to build your fundamentals up, that makes sense, okay? There's only one problem that you need to consider, which is that's how you think, right? You want to start as a setter and you want to graduate into a closer. But you have to understand that the companies, they don't think like that, because they spend all this effort to find a qualified setter, right? A skilled setter. They onboard you, they spend a few weeks, maybe even a few months to train you, to season you, to condition you. And their plan is for you to consistently stay in that role so that you become the best appointment setter possible, so that you book as many calls as you can for them the whole year round. That's how they think. Does that make sense? So they are not thinking that, hey, I'm going to let you come into my company and practice as a setter, and then when you are ready, I'm going to let you graduate into a closer. Because if you do that, it makes sense for you, it doesn't make sense for them, because now they have to go out there and find another setter and train them and optimize them, and then what? They grow into a closer again, and then they have to repeat this process. So for that reason, A-grade companies don't want you to graduate into a closer. because now they have to repeat the process all over again. They want the best appointment setter that they can, that can specialize in those specific skill sets that I mentioned at the start of this video. So that will be your journey as a setter. And if you want to transition from that role after you've gained the confidence, the discipline, and the understanding into a closer role, it's probably going to be with a different company. And then when they ask you, do you have experience as a closer? And you say no, but I have experience as a setter. I've done messages, I've done some triage calls, and hey, you still have no experience closing. So how does that solve the problem? Right? It's not a direct solution. So when people give you advice to start as a setter, you have to understand where they are coming from, why does it work, and when does it not work. So I hope this clears that misconception up once and for all. And for myself, I have never started as a setter. I went straight into closing, and to build the discipline, I just gave myself the discipline. To build the understanding, I just gave myself the understanding. I did not need to play a different sport to prepare for a different sport. You get what I'm saying? I just went straight into the sport that I want to play. Okay? And when you say, I don't have experience and companies want closers with experience, you have to understand that the default rule for everyone is nobody starts with experience. When you start, you have no experience. That's why it's a start. Okay? So the real way to solve the no experience problem is not to get experience from a different department, because in the end, you're still not a closer, right? The way to solve this problem directly is to get your foot in the door and work your way up. So hey, if you have not seen my 333 framework training video, it's free. Check either the descriptions or do a search, Sena 333, and hopefully you'll find that training. Otherwise, just drop me a message and let me know. Once you see this framework, you will look at the industry, the closer industry as a whole, and you will have a clear understanding of what it means when I say to progressively work your way up, to fail forwards, to accumulate experience points. And yes, your first 1, 2, 3 gigs is not going to be ideal, because when you have no game, you attract the businesses that have no game as well. It's just the way it is. And as you improve, as you get dialed in, you will notice that the opportunities you attract are also dialed in. So please, block some time out today to study the 333 video. Do the work, because if you don't, you're going to spend the next half a year circling back and forth. Should I be a setter? Should I be a closer? And then you get inside only to realize that both entities are such different monsters, and the skill sets complement each other directly, but to transition, it's a different thing altogether. And so many closers to try this, and they end up getting stuck as a setter. They end up getting burned out as a setter. So if you can survive that indirect transition, then go ahead and start as a setter. But if you want a more direct way, by understanding what the industry is, therefore what are the direct qualities and skills you should directly focus on, so that you can go straight like what I did. I never started as a setter. I went straight into closing. I went straight into closing full-time with no experience. I learned how to brand myself, express myself, fail forwards, create substance. All of this is in my SSS method, so do check that out as well. It's in the description as well. So these two frameworks, once you study them, you will have a top-down view of the entire game plan. So if you're currently stuck in a 9 to 5 and you want to transition out doing remote sales work, which is kind of the trend now these days, I don't know why, but a lot of people are trying to do that. Study these two frameworks, and then you will start to think from a top-down perspective what should be your strategy. Because once you have a plan that makes sense, now your hard work and your focus, your daily efforts that you make, it gets properly channeled into the right vehicle. This is such a much better way than taking advice from people that haven't legit closed full-time, okay, it's gonna confuse you. You're gonna circle back and forth, and in the end you get stuck, you get burnt out, and you quit. Okay, that's not the way to do this. So study the right frameworks and then send me your insights, your takeaways. If this video helped, drop a like, drop a sub, leave a comment, and tag a friend that needs to watch this video. Until next time, it's Sena. Have a great day.